I have a guest joining me in studio, and he's going to be talking with us about some, call it, growth issues. Some people, of course, are for that. Some are against it when it comes to the city of Twin Falls. Jonathan Spendlove is the director of community development or planner of community development.
Just a planner one.
Planner one,
Yeah.
uh, which was still being better
Uh,
than maybe planner 12 or.
well, I'd say planner zero would be worse.
Yeah, I guess I can see that. First of all, welcome to our show today.
Thank you.
We're talking about something called the comprehensive plan. We had gotten off a conversation a couple of weeks ago with Don Hall about this, but it was really near the end of our program, and it was about growth in the city. And there's been a lot of questions about. And of course, the joke was somebody came to Twin Falls a few months ago from a national publication and referred to Twin Falls as just sprawl. The sprawl that is Twin Falls, I think, is the actual quote. For a visitor here, they're trying to grasp what it is we're doing, and I suppose because the growth has been so rapid here, that people tend to look at it in different ways and interpret it in different ways. Your role is to find a way to put this all together so that it makes sense and it's easy to navigate in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, right?
Yeah. So the goal is really the comprehensive plan will help develops a plan that policymakers and decision makers, so city council, city staff, can use when we get a project that comes forward and they want to do something. And the comprehensive plan helps direct that growth in a way that people in the city want to see. And so through this process, we've gone through an extensive public involvement over the last 12, 15 months to garner what people would like to see and how they would like to see growth happen. And so by developing this comprehensive plan, we're able to have those types of policies and action plans to direct that growth in a way that people want to see. Now, people want to be able to get to where they want to get to, the schools, shopping centers, entertainment, where they work. They want to live in a place that's nice. We've done a lot of public outreach to get people's input on what they want to see, and this plan kind of outlines how we want to go about doing that over the next 20 years. As far as sprawl and growth goes, yeah, we've had a lot of growth in the last 10 years, particularly in the northwest part of town, especially around the hospital. When the hospital moved, I mean, they took a lot of people with them, not just businesses, but people want to live by it. So they're hiring at a rapid rate, nurses, doctors, and they want to live near the hospital. So the northwest part of town's growing, everything up by Grandview and Poline, and then also on the eastern part, that's always grown out towards Eastland and even further towards Hankins with the new elementary school that's out there. So we anticipate growth, kind of a market driven thing towards those areas particularly. Um, and the South's going to grow as well with the new middle school. So, but to do that, there's other things that come into play: transportation, housing types. Um, there's a bunch of other stuff that goes into growth, and we want to make sure that people can still enjoy living in Twin Falls. When we asked people what they wanted to see or what they liked, I guess, about Twin Falls, we created in this document. There's a Wordle. They call it a Wordle. It's a compilation of words that we heard from people, and they loved the small town feel. And that was the biggest thing that we heard, as well as a sense of community and outdoor activities. We have such great activities around here with the Canyon Rim, the Snake River.
We don't lack for green space and parks.
Well, yeah, some may argue that we do, but really we have a pretty good system, and I think it's only going to get better. And this document kind of points us towards actually connecting the trails a little bit more than we have. Also, sidewalks. We heard a lot about sidewalks. That was one thing we did hear about wanting to improve. So we asked two questions of people: what do we love about our community in the future, or what do we want to improve? And sidewalks was a big one. And the city's rolling out a sidewalk match program. I believe it's been on city council. It's a small start, but it's a matching program put out by the Public Works Department. So if you want to have any questions about that one, that'd be a Public Works, specifically Vicky over at Public Works, or John Caton, who's the director of Public Works.
I believe we have a telephone caller with us. And caller, we want to mention you're on the air with Jonathan Spendlove, and he's joining us this morning from the city of Twin Falls, and we're talking comprehensive plan. What's your comment or question?
Listen, I'm a frequent flyer out of Twin Falls Airport. I love Twin Falls. It's a great, great town. But we got to change that airport. If we expect the city to grow and prosper, we cannot have that airport where it's at. The ideal location is the northern side of the freeway, that big patch of desert on the north side of the freeway. which has easy access to Sun Valley, easy access to all the other communities in the Magic Valley, as well as easier access for Twin Falls people. And I hate to see it put any more money into the airport out there when it needs to be moved. It's in the wrong location. Thank you.
Do you get that from anyone else?
We, I think some people say it's inconvenient to drive that far south. Airports and people don't mix. Airports and development don't mix because flight paths, any type of catastrophe with an airplane can cause a lot of damage. And so, really, they try and place airports in places. And actually, Joslyn Field's in a good spot per FAA standards. Um, for the county and the city standpoint, really, it's in a spot where it's not going to do any collateral damage if something happens, but it's also not that far from downtown. It was placed a long time ago. Some people
Decades.
yeah, it's been decades. But we are, in order to help, and part of the issue might be the terminal issues with no bathrooms after you get through security. They're remedying that with an expansion program that Bill Carberry is doing.
I would think though that the only thing that really stuck in my mind that got my attention when he was bringing that up is the fact it is far from the highway. The south side may not be a bad location. It's just there's no exit or on ramp near the interstate nearby,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, those are both off on the other sides of the city. Uh,
Yeah.
that's I guess the one thing, because if you go to a lot of cities, usually the airport is off a quick exit from an interstate, and that's the one thing we lack.
Yeah, we do lack an interstate in the city limits. We don't have one. Um, I know that's just kind of where Twin Falls was set up. The interstate was chosen to be on the north side of the canyon instead of the south. And I think the roadway down to it, Washington, isn't a terrible road to drive. And you're right. I mean, the location of it right off an interstate typically is what happens. But when you do that, it also drives growth of people wanting to be by it. And again, it's one of those things where people and airports don't mix, but you want it close enough. Um,
Well, no, when I used to drive to BWI periodically to pick up friends and relatives, I would drive down everything on the highway is built to service the airport, and it's all of the freight shippers,
mhm.
all of those private companies. So the south side at least has that open space that you could develop in that sense.
That's right. And this plan identifies some of that area to be able to be done for airport services. Um, we extended the airport kind of district area on the plan to show that some of those services, and FedEx is even putting up a new building out there it's actually on airport property, but other places like that, other businesses like that, I should say, uh, will probably end up going out that way. Um, because they want to be by the airport. They want to be close to the shipping and the airplanes and all that when they're getting there. I mean, like FedEx.
It's 8:51, and our guest is Jonathan Spendlove, joining us from the city of Twin Falls, talking about the comprehensive plan, which is the blueprint for growth in the city in the coming years and decades. It's 8:52, and it's 46. I don't mean to say that sprawl is a bad word, because I think sometimes it gets that connotation. I live on that northwest side, and the fact of the matter is I can go out the front door and within 5 minutes, I can be at the hospital, the doctor's office, about four choices for groceries,
Mhm.
about three choices for clothes if I count them all. And so everything, and tires, restaurants, breakfast, lunch, dinner, everything is right there. And when you mention that small town feel, it feels like there's actually four or five small towns all conjoined. And my side, the northwest side, feels like it's one. I guess the east side would feel like another. Downtown and some of the
Mhm.
surrounding neighborhoods. Uh, I know people would argue that we need more cohesiveness, I guess, between the different elements, but still, any city that grows large enough has really a series of different downtowns.
Yeah, I think any city that grows large enough ends up having kind of a distinctive neighborhoods, and maybe you just identified four of them.
Right,
South,
right.
downtown, east, and west. By having state highways in town, interstates do the same thing. But Blue Lakes is a state highway. Addison Avenue from the Five Points West is a state highway, and they're larger roads with higher speeds. Pole line again, they kind of dissect neighborhoods a little bit, and trying to get those neighborhoods to connect together, and that's kind of what the trails and sidewalks we would hope would do, and get better connections through all of those. Yeah, sprawl does get a bad connotation, I think, and sometimes you kind of have to think of sprawl as it's almost a scope thing. How far are you? How far is your lens? Is Twin Falls City, as we're growing, and if we are growing cohesively as far as we're not expanding our boundaries, beyond open space to build another subdivision that's a mile away. Um, with the density that we have, we're actually pretty close together. Some of these other subdivisions that go out on the outlying areas, some of those are in the county, and we don't have a jurisdiction on that. It's something that we can do. That's a county thing about 1 acre lots outside of city boundaries. It's one of those things we don't have control over. But if we can keep our town neighborhoods, the ones we're used to seeing around town, like downtown, the northwest side, the east side, and as they grow, just in order. Um, I don't think that's sprawl. I think we are keeping it towards the center, getting higher densities along the corridors, along Blue Lakes or along Addison, and that's what this plan kind of talks about is expanding those mixed uses. So we have either apartments or duplexes or fourplexes along the higher traffic areas, and then have supporting commercial around them so that you can go walk to where you want to eat instead of having to drive, or walk to the grocery store if you forgot some milk or red wine vinegar or whatever you need
Mhm.
for your dinner. That's the kind of stuff I think we want to see. But then we also have to support those with the infrastructure, with your sidewalks, with your trails, ways for you to get there without having to drive.
We have another caller with us. Caller, thank you for your patience. You're on the air on News Radio 1310 KLIX. Go ahead.
Good morning. Blue Lakes Avenue is the most dangerous road in southern Idaho. So if we've got all the people coming in to Blue Lakes, that's going to make it even more dangerous if you have airport traffic going out there. If we continue to have the trucks going down Blue Lakes and different things like that, and if you move them over to Washington or you move them over to Eastland, that's going to create more of a problem there. The second question is, how much of your discussion and your plans are in accordance with the Agenda 21 program, which the United Nations has implemented or wants to implement and is vehemently against the United States? I'll listen online. Thank you.
All right. So the trucks thing, it's unique. We've got 100-foot plus deep canyon that's so many feet wide, and we only have one bridge
Right.
around. And that one bridge comes on Blue Lakes. So, everybody's coming off and on Perrine Bridge. And then from there, you get to the pole line. They can go to Washington or Eastland or down Blue Lakes. I'm not sure, and that's a state road. Again, I'm not sure it's going to move, but something we do talk about in this plan is getting a local plan for Blue Lakes, coming up with some sort of way to identify how to either make it better, make traffic easier, make it more aesthetically pleasing for people to walk, or we identify somewhere else for people to walk and ride bikes. The truck traffic is something that's going to continue with the way the city's growing. And since we only have one bridge, there really isn't another choice unless you're going to Hanson Bridge or further west over towards Buell. That's something that, unfortunately, I'm not sure we can solve on our own as a city. It would take
More of a
some
state issue.
Yeah, it'd be a state issue and partners regionally. The Agenda 21, really, we don't look at Agenda 21 for how we're creating our comprehensive
This is
plan.
in Portland, right?
We are looking towards a state statute that identifies what we need to do, and that was the legislatures at the state outlined the items we need to accomplish with the comprehensive plan. And so we look at that, and we have to follow that. Whether that is in conformance with the Agenda 21, I don't know. I haven't really cross-referenced those two documents together. I'm not going to comment on them because I'm not sure. But I just know we're following the state statute that we have to do.
Before we wrap up, for people who'd like to know a little bit more, is this all available online?
Yeah, everything I'm talking about, this document, www.tfid.org. You can search for Comprehensive Plan 2035.
We may have to have you come back someday just to expand on all of this because, this was the survey course today. We really just sort of scratched the surface on it.
Yeah, there's a lot more. The public hearing's on Tuesday, this next Tuesday at 6 p.m. to the council chambers, 305 3rd Avenue East, I believe.
This is the new council chambers.
Yeah, it's the council chambers over
Temporary.
where the old city hall was. It's just across the street there.
All right. We thank you very much. I hope you get a big crowd out there because this is about the future of people who live here. And we want to thank them for their telephone calls as well. 9 o'clock news is coming up next. We want to thank Jonathan for dropping by today. And do want to mention as well, coming up in just a few minutes, Forrest Anderson joins us from Washington Street Pawn, talking firearms and firearm safety today, right here on News Radio 1310 KLIX, newsradio1310.com. It's 45. Bill Colley with you on Top Story.